Hello again, everyone. Earlier, I showed you how to make your own external textures. Now we're going to look at how we actually use these external textures. Just as a recap, a little reminder, I'll just close this. I have placed my textures that we're going to be using in resource cats and then in this subfolder. You don't have to do that. You can place them just directly in resource cats or even in a separate folder in the resources section. It doesn't matter. But mine are going to be here. Now I'm going to go and load up my tutorial cat, which I prepared earlier. Change it to base data. All right. At the moment, my cat has 5 identical textures in use, and I want to either replace some of them or add some more, and we just need to go through how to do that. So first of all, let's say that we want to just change the texture on the main body of this cat to be one of our new textures. The way we do this is we choose one of these textures. Let's first of all go edit. Let's go show texture unchanged, and that's just going to show us where this texture is being used. So as you can see, it's being used on the neck and the ears. That doesn't particularly bother us right now, but I think it's good to just be aware because you might want to switch those things around. So I'm now going to go and say edit, import texture. I keep it to show texture unchanged because I'm going to be using non-transparent textures. I'm going to import, and it's already looking in my tutorial textures folder because I opened this up earlier. And I'm going to choose this green texture, say open. Okay, and there you go. It's been placed on the cat. And I'm just going to go to the textures tab, navigate to here, click on that, and I can just change the texture wherever I want on the cat to be this green one. Okay, great. Then I'm going to check which parts of the cat this texture is on, show texture unchanged, okay. It's just being used on one hip, so that's fine. I'm going to go and edit, import texture, import, make it this one, say open, okay. And then I'm going to also color in, I think, just a little bit of the legs. Yeah, I'll just also do this. Okay. And I think lastly, I would like a texture to put on the face in this area. But say that for whatever reason, I've already used these slots as well that were already part of the breed file, and I want to add a new texture. I can do that. I can just say add, edit, and same process, import texture. And let's just import, let's say this space one, open. Okay, navigate to this one on the list and make the cheeks and maybe the jaw. Oh, I accidentally made the head that color too. That's okay. I actually quite like that. Let's keep it like that. All right. And just as a finishing touch, I'm going to change the eyelid color. Maybe just make it, shall we just make it some shade of blue? Okay. And I think I'd rather that the eyes were both this yellow shade. Okay. So that's it. That's our cat done. It's using lots of different textures. We added a new one to the list and we're ready to go. So I can say file, save, and this is done. If I load this up in Pets 4 right now, it's exactly what you expect, looks great, no problem. Textures do appear a little bit different in-game than they do in Pet Workshop, so don't worry about that. Alright, now there is a step I didn't mention here, because if you do this and you load it up in game like I just did, it's absolutely fine. You'll be able to see your texture and what it looks like on the pet. However, if you then, this is an overwriting file, if you then go and remove that and replace the original orange short hair, your pet is suddenly going to appear untextured that you adopted from this file. The reason for that is that Pet Workshop automatically creates an internal file path, which you can see here. So you see the enter texture name area. It says pets files cat, OR is for orange short hair, and then the name of the file. It does this automatically. It's just set up to do that, but we actually need it to be an external texture file path. So the correct file path for this is actually resource cats, and then tutorial textures, because it's in a subfolder, and then the name of the file. So I'm just going to quickly type that in here. Resource cats. Double check the name of the file of the folder. Tutorial textures, yep. Click OK. And now the file path should be correct. Sometimes when you do this, particularly if you close Pet Workshop and then you reload, the texture you've just, the texture with the correct external file path will no longer display properly in Pet Workshop. It'll still be fine in the game, but you won't see it in Pet Workshop. So leave this as a last step. Leave this correcting the textures as a last step, because if you do it earlier, you're just not going to be able to see your work, and it's a little bit difficult to deal with. I'll now save this, and we're going to go and look at Lines Pro, because that pretty much covers what you do in Pet Workshop. It's very simple. Just change your textures, add textures, click where you want them to be, and that's it. If I open up Lines Pro now, and we'll load up the same orange short hair. Remember, we click on Lines Expanded, OR, which stands for orange short hair. It'll be different depending on the breed. And then scroll down. Let's first of all scroll down to our texture list. And you see here our full texture list with the corrected file path here. I'm going to, because it's very easy to do this in Lines Pro, I'm also going to correct these two to point to the external locations. And we can save this and just load the cat up again and just check that it looks right. It does. Yeah, there we go. And just return it again. Now let's just go through what everything here means. So we have the texture list. The texture list, you will count down the textures from 0. So this is texture 0, this is texture 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. These little red numbers indicate the transparency. So in Pet Workshop, you see that it says argument 0, argument 1. If you go to edit custom transparent color transparency, you can change this number, and then that's what will appear there, and that tells the game that whatever color you put in, for example, if I say 15 here, then any little white areas that are in the shade of 15 in the color palette will be transparent, and you'll be able to see the color underneath. So here, if I wanted to make one of these partially transparent, I could change this 0, for example, to a 20, and then anything that is colored in the gray range will be transparent, and I'll see the color of the cat underneath, which happens to be white in our case. I'm not going to do that though. I want it to not be transparent, so I use a 0. And you see that the Kali textures that were already in the file are set to 1, which means to color them the same as the ball color underneath. Now, if we go and look at one of the ball information sections, so like for example, balls info here, you see that this last number, you see 1, 0, 5, -1 here. This is the texture column. So in this case, we can see that the head, I have labeled it, the head is texture 5, which in our list, remember, is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So the space texture. We can just change that. We can go to 5, to head, and we can change 5. And let's say we just make it 0, which is the very first texture on our list here. It's this one here. And save. And then load up in the game. And you see that the texture of the head has now changed. It's no longer the space texture, and it's this green texture instead. In addition to the balls info section, other places where you can use textures are the paintball section, which we have covered in a previous video, and of course the add balls section. So if I scroll up to add balls here, you can see yet again the last column is the texture column. And let's say we want to change the texture of the nose. It's currently set to 4, which is one of those transparent Kali textures, and we can see that the color of the balls themselves, the add balls themselves, is 185. Now, if you remember from a previous video when we went over the general basics of Pet Workshop, not all colors are texturable. So if we open up Pet Editing Manual and scroll down to General Editing Information and click on Colors, then you're going to see this nice color chart. And what this color chart shows us is the Pets palette. Any color between 10 and 149 here is texturable. Anything lower than 10 or higher than 149 will appear as a flat color in the game, and it doesn't matter if you tell the game to show a texture, to display a texture in that area, it won't show it. So we're going to choose, instead of 185, which is here in this range, we're going to choose one of these colors to change the nose into. I'm just going to go for 15 because that's nice and simple. Go. And I'm going to change the texture here to 5, so the space texture. Now what we should find is that the nose, when we launch the game again, is textured that space texture. So let's go orange short hair, open it up, and there we go. Okay. Ooh, super. That's really all there is to changing textures in Lines Pro. You just need to know to look at this last column to change the textures and to make sure that the colors are texturable. If we go back to the balls section, to the balls info section a second, the color is the first column in this case. And you will also notice if we just look here, some of these have -1 as their texture, just like in the paintball section, which we covered previously. The texture is -1 for the paw pads. That just means there's no texture there. They're untextured areas. In the case of these balls, that's because these are the irises, and if we go higher up, these are the eyeballs. Everything else has a texture assigned, as you can see. A very common error, just as a tip for troubleshooting as well, a very common error is that one of these numbers will be higher than a texture that's actually on the list. So for example, if I were to put a 7 here, if we go back to the texture list, there is no texture number 7, right? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We don't have a 6 or a 7. So if I were to launch the game now and try to get this breed file out, it would crash and give me an error. And the same would happen if it was a pet. So if you have that issue after you've been playing around with textures and messing around with these numbers, just check that you do have enough textures. One easy way to fix it is literally just to grab one of the textures like this and just paste more in. Alright, so I think that's everything that I wanted to cover today. You hopefully now know how to make your own external textures from the previous video, and from this video have hopefully understood how to use Pet Workshop and Lines Pro to put those textures on a breed file, and also to edit existing textures in whatever way you'd like. Please let me know if you'd like me to do any other specific tutorials, if you have any ideas for videos you'd like to see. I'm very willing to make those. The textures that I've been using in this tutorial that you saw in that textures folder, I will put up for download. There'll be a link in the description for where to find those. And I will also put up the hexing base, the orange short hair cat that I created. I will put that up as well. It's quite a simple little base, but it's hexed off my fixed Oshi that does not change size in the next generation because the normal orange short hair does. I'll maybe do a video about that in the future as well, but please feel free to play around with that to hex it however you like. You can add textures or not. I won't be uploading it with the custom textures as part of that, so you can use it just without those textures. I hope you enjoyed today's video and see you in the next one.